give a warm welcome to the hosts of The Bride of Alternate Ending.
I got nothing. Hello, ghouls and goblins, and welcome back to Bride of Alternate Ending. This is a completely flavorless intro read to match the movie that we are doing today.
I was gonna say, you say you got nothing, but you know who else got nothing? Is Joseph A. Mazuka, the director of Sisters of Death.
Sisters of Death.
And by phrasing it that way, or by sort of using that tone of voice, I think both of us were scarier than the movie Sisters of Death.
Yeah, Sisters of Death. I mean, we'll start talking about it in earnest soon, but it's kind of like a porno where they forgot to put the sex in.
That's a perfect comparison.
Okay, great. Thank you. It's got all of the white-walled, bland nothing of a porn that's not particularly well heeled, and all of the absent vacant plot.
It's also got the "Oh, Cindy, why aren't you wearing your clothes?" level acting of a porno.
Yeah, it does. Although, I mean, we'll see if there's any exceptions. But yes, I am Brennan Klein, your ghost. With me, as always, is your co-ghost, Tim Brayton. And yes, this is the second episode of our month of exploring horror movies featuring the cast members of Beverly Hills 90210, because I am a monster and I made Tim follow me on this journey.
I will say, in your defense, I was the one who agitated pretty hard for this specific film because I assumed I would never watch it if I didn't use this reason to watch it. And I have now seen it and I feel like I was correct.
Yes. Yeah, and certainly I don't have plans on watching this movie ever again in the future. So that does tie in. But yes, this movie features, in a much larger role than I was actually anticipating, Joe E. Tata, who played basically from episode 2 or 3 of 90210. He played Nat, the guy who owns and operates the diner called the Peach Pit, where they all hang out. Every show has that restaurant where all the gang hangs out, and this is that one. Basically, he did become a main cast member in seasons 6 through 10 once Brandon's parents left, and he had enough kind of cachet on the show to probably bug the producers and say, hey, if you're going to put me in 5 seconds of every episode and go, there's a rat at the Peach Pit, maybe pay me more.
I have never wanted to watch Beverly Hills 90210 more than I do by hearing you describe that as being a weekly occurrence on the program.
Sometimes Tiffany Thiessen will be like, the ice machine's broken, and he'll be like, I got it, Val. And that's just kind of what Nat is up to.
Is there ever like the Nat episode?
Not yet.
Because on Deep Space Nine, which is a show I've been rewatching, there's a character who doesn't speak, and he was originally just an extra, and then he kind of became a featured extra. And by season 6, there's a straight up episode about him, and he still never speaks.
Ooh.
Because the appliance that he's wearing does not have our points of articulation, so he has no mouth. And it's not a good episode, and it was a bad decision to give him one. But I'm curious if this also only shows up for 5 seconds in an episode type character ended up involved in, like, is there an episode in a late season, or like a late season episode where we just like learn how the Peach Pit is run?
I think there has to be. I mean, we do get Nat he is always a supporting character. He's always showing up in a scene to ask, well, what's going on with you, Brandon? But he does have we get a lot of insight into specifically how the Peach Pit operates because it changes hands a lot. Usually the money person behind the Peach Pit is one of the main cast of Beverly Hills 90210.
Oh, interesting.
I imagine we have to get maybe not a Nat episode, but a Nat 3-episode arc of a B story or something.
Sure.
maybe he gets a girlfriend. Maybe his mom dies. She's probably already dead. Maybe his sister dies. I don't know. Um, but I feel
So
like
here's
yes.
my second question. Oh no, if you had more to say there, that I will not interrupt you.
Okay, I was just saying. I feel like they have to give him anything, but that would be, I think, overestimating the writers of Beverly Hills 90210 and their
That
interest
feels
in
like
Matt.
it feels like a last season thing to do.
Yes, and
Like
he is
when
in the last
shows know
season.
that they're rattling towards the end, they're like, "Who else haven't we given an episode to?" I know the manager of the restaurant. My second question: assuming he does not get a focal point episode, but he only merely shows up to interact with the characters once and then leaves, would it be fair to analogize him to the Watcher in Kieślowski's The Decalogue, who may or may not be a representation of Christ judging us for our sins?
Hmm. Well, I can't say I'm that familiar with the text in question, but I will say that Brandon Walsh, the Jason Priestley character, is definitely he thinks he's Jesus Christ, and I think the show frequently thinks that he is as well. They're wrong.
Okay,
But I think he's more of a Marvel's The Watcher kind of character, where he's an
okay.
observer and he does have judgment, but he doesn't necessarily have power to enact that judgment.
Oh, I mean that is I would say also true of the watching character in Decalogue. He takes no actions, he merely watches.
Okay. Yes. So in that case, I do think that is probably accurate.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, no, Nat is.
I'll also point out you could watch the entirety of the Decalogue in like half the length. You could watch a season of Beverly Hills 90210.
That's probably true. Oh my God, there's like 32 episodes on the season I'm watching right now. It
Oh, then
is.
like a third of the time it would take you to watch a season.
Oh yeah, it is
There were
brutal.
32 episodes of a TV show that was airing in the 90s.
Oh yeah. Oh
What's wrong
yeah.
with them?
No, they weren't fucking around. They were, they're the biggest thing on the planet for a while. They
That's
could get away
true.
with murder. Um
But typically Get Away With is like, we're only going to do 10 episodes this season, not we're going to do 40.
yeah, no, I mean they worked those kids like prize hogs. Just stuffing them with lines and dialogue and whatever. But anyway, yeah, no, Nat is definitely one of those characters where if you think about him for 2 seconds, you're like, where does he live? Or just like, does he
Presumably
have a
upstairs in the
hobby?
Peach Pit.
I don't know. But the more you pull at the thread of him, you're like, I know literally nothing about this man, and I've spent many, many hours of my life with him. Anyway,
Which speaks to I think so many of the friendships we take for granted, and that maybe is Nat's lesson for us.
yeah, maybe he dies in the finale, and people, or
Maybe
maybe,
maybe that's the plot of the finale. He dies and everyone's really sad because they realize they never got to know Nat.
yeah, or maybe. So I know he appears in the finale, but I know that comes after like a 10 episode absence. So maybe in the
Hmm.
finale he appears as a force ghost at the wedding that I know is in the finale. And then like 10 episodes before is Nat dying, and that is the episode where we get all of the backstory, and they're kind of like looking through his things in his hovel of an apartment and realizing like I didn't know Nat was in World War II. And we get to know everything about it.
I am eager to hear how this is the only thing I want to hear from your ongoing journey through Beverly Hills 90210 is what happens to
Okay,
Nat.
I will report back on that.
Thank you.
And also just since we're doing this month, there is some Beverly Hills 90210 news. So on the 134 freeway that goes through Pasadena, there is an adopt a highway sign that has just been erected. A portion of the highway has been adopted by Jenny Garth from 90210.
All right. All right.
Um,
I was hoping you were going to tell me that they're trying to reboot it again because the last one went really well.
I am so excited to watch the reboot once I'm done with the fucking 200 whatever episodes I have
I was gonna
left.
say the reboot should not take you very long.
No, it will not. But the reboot's actually the reason I wanted to watch the show in the first place is because it's so meta and strange and nobody liked it, which makes me think I'm gonna love it.
Okay.
Anyway, we should talk.
I
Yep.
love that you're playing by Tim Brayton rules, where it's like, well, I want to watch this 13 episode half season that nobody liked, so I better watch the 10 seasons of episodes preceding.
Yep. I mean, I want to know. I am going to skip the CW 5 season reboot because I simply don't have time for that. But you gotta have the basics, the
Obviously.
fundamentals.
Obviously.
Anyway, yes, we are here to watch the Joe E. Tata joint Sisters of Death from 1977, same year as
Oh,
Star
that's right.
Wars.
Of course, I forgot about that. I will
Uh,
say, same year Star Wars that it was released, but of course it was filmed the same year as The Godfather.
Wait, okay, so
I'm just riffing on other good movies. No, this movie was shot in 1972 and held. This was
okay,
on the
yeah,
shelf
sorry.
for 5 years.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, so I was just trying to do math. I'm like, wait, when was The Godfather shot? Because I don't have that date firmly locked in my head. That's
Well,
wild. I mean,
technically, The Godfather would have been shot in 71. I hit 72 and kind of latched onto it a
yeah,
little
yeah,
too
yeah.
hard.
I forgive you.
It was shot the same year as Cries and Whispers.
Huh. Okay. That makes a little bit of sense that it is a pre Texas Chainsaw, pre Black Christmas slasher.
Hmm.
Because it is. I mean, one day we'll talk about what this movie's about. Um, but it does feel like
It
a.
it feels like it's unaware that in slasher movies you can show people die.
Yeah, it's like it feels like it's part of that primordial soup that the slasher was born from. Like obviously Psycho had happened, and we were getting those kind of movies a little bit. So it's kind of born from that soup, but it's also like almost a Vincent Price picture without the Vincent Price.
Hmm.
Um, at least it has major feints toward being that. So I think it is interesting in terms of that weird, not quite a slasher, not quite anything else vibe that it has.
Because the one thing it does do that to me at least, and you are every bit the slasher expert I am, if not considerably more so, frankly. One of the things that I would say, and I'm curious if you would agree,
Okay.
is non-negotiable even with a pure slasher. Like not one of these proto slashers sort of coalescing out of the cosmic dust, but an honest to God, this is a slasher, no one would deny it. I think one of the things that's required is that it has the and then there were none narrative structure where we find a place, we put a bunch of characters there, we kill them off one at a time.
Yeah, there's obviously exceptions to that rule, but that is like such a core fundamental thing. I totally agree that like when you're doing that, you at least have a whiff of slasher about you, no matter what. Like,
Because this is a very unhidden riff on and then there were none, I think. Like
mm,
it's like really it is borrowing a lot from that structure.
yes, of course. No, that makes sense, and that's part of that stew as well. And people don't really think of "And Then There Were None" as a slasher, but you're right.
But I mean,
Um,
I don't think it is. I think
yeah,
its structure is a thing that these slashers really glommed onto. Not immediately. Like Halloween doesn't have that structure, but the Friday the 13th do.
yeah. No, you're completely right. And I mean, obviously, a big part of it. I mean, that's kind of the cabin in the woods
Hmm.
element. It is, generally in a slasher, you need to have the characters be isolated from someone who can actually help them. You put
They
them in a snowed-in hotel or a mountain
or
cabin or
or even just it's school, it's prom night, and we don't have enough time to leave the school.
yeah, exactly. And that's why a movie like Scream, putting it like in this kind of suburban town where there are other houses you can run to, but there's also like the killer's a little more clever. Like they're putting a twist on that because it's that had been so standardized at that point.
Hmm. And I will say, the Scream films, well, obviously their whole thing is commenting on the slasher, they feel a little bit more like Giallo to me.
Oh, that is a conversation I would love to have, but we need to talk about
We
Sisters of
need,
Death.
do we though? Because
uh,
because I hope it's obvious that I'm trying to make sure we don't.
yeah. Well, let's.
Well, let's table is Scream a slasher or a neo Giallo, and move on to is Sisters of Death a movie?
Yep. Certainly, whoever kept it on the shelf for 5 years did not think it was. But yes, Sisters of Death, 1977. It's I mean it's got a really simple premise, but also another very solid slasher component is the prank gone wrong, or just like some, maybe prank is not the right word for what happens here, but just like something goes wrong several years ago, and now we're reuniting on the anniversary of that thing. But the thing in question is a, well, they never quite nudge up to calling it a sorority. Are they a secret society? Like, what are they doing?
I mean, we know that the police investigated. So they didn't hide the body. So they're not that secret of a society.
Okay.
But it feels like if this is what's going on in sororities, we need to be much more vigorous about banning them. So I
Yes.
can't imagine.
Yeah, I don't know. They never say sorority, but they are a group called the Sisters.
They are a sorority. Whether they are
Yes.
part of the Greek system at a university is left tantalizingly unclear.
Yes, exactly. But yes, there is an initiation to join the sisters. There are two pledges who are being initiated. Part of the pledge initiation, we're all covered in veils. It's the only image in the movie that is striking in any way.
Oh, the opening scene, I thought I was in for something. I was ready after that opening scene.
Yes. Also, I will say, I don't know how you watched it, but I watched it via Prime Video on the most
Oh,
outrageously
oh,
shitty transfer I've
oh,
ever seen.
oh, oh, it was bad. Like you can't read the credits. They're
Yeah.
so blurry and like and just scuffed and red, so there's like video bleeds. It's clearly a VHS transfer.
Yeah, it is. It is a wallow in pure ugliness to watch this movie on Prime Video. I don't know if the YouTube cut is any different.
The YouTube cut, I am sure, without having seen it, cannot be worse.
Yes, exactly. Um, but yes, anyway, so part of the sorority initiation, they're all covered in these kind of veils. And then they do this. So there's also a nice image. There's like a bullet that's surrounded by a necklace that's lying on a kind of pillow. There's two of them, one for each pledge. They put a bullet in the gun. They're playing Russian roulette.
They
But does
they are not playing Russian roulette. P.S. Because Russian roulette requires a gun that will not fire the first bullet available to it because they're not using a revolver.
yes, I was gonna say
It
because
it it has a chamber.
yeah, I
It
was
will
like,
fire the bullet.
well, it's a chamber that can fit two bullets,
Yes,
right?
yes. So if you put the bullet in the top chamber, it will fire, and if you put the bullet in the bottom chamber, it will not. And it feels like this is a pretty straightforward system to game.
Yes. So I don't know if that was specifically the, no, it doesn't seem like it was because they were supposed to be shooting blanks, right? And that's kind of the
I
thing.
think the idea is that it's ceremonial. It's meant to be we're going to shoot a blank at you. You're going to either flinch or not. So I don't think it is actually. I mean, I think it's supposed to be Russian roulette, and it's not because the gun is just not physically capable of playing Russian roulette.
Yeah.
But I think it is not meant to. Well, because also the girls aren't the ones who pull the trigger, right? The head priestess is the one who
Sure.
does. So I think it's meant to be more of a ceremonial thing because again, part of the plot is that it was supposed to be a blank.
Yes.
Supposed to be.
Supposed to be. Yeah. So the first girl, she passes. She gets her necklace. She's part of the sisterhood. Second girl, she gets a bullet to the dome, baby. Uh,
Which I it's cheesy and 70s, but I really liked how they did it because she gets shot and then it cuts to like freeze frame reaction shots of all the other girls and the room and the credits play out over the freeze frames.
I loved that. I
I
really
thought
liked
that was
that.
great. I really I say 70s cheese with my heart full of love for
Yeah.
70s cheese.
And
Again, I'm on board with the movie at this point.
yeah, we'll see how quickly we lose that. But yeah, no, there's some great shots of like, because they're still wearing the veils, but they're gasping, so the veil is kind of like sucked against their face almost. It's fun. It's a good look. And it's nice to have something to look at during the credits we cannot read because of
Yes,
the
indeed.
terrible transfer.
It was fun trying to tease out words that I knew I would be looking for, like director of photography or Joe Tata. And I could read Tata, but I could not read Joe. So I assume that's when I was seeing his credit. I
Well,
think
you've
he
got a
got the also
keen
starring.
eye for tatas.
I do. I do. I had threatened, I believe, off mic that I was going to keep trotting out the joke, show us your tatas for this movie. I don't think the movie earns my bad jokes on that level, but no, I think Joe Tata got the also starring credit.
uh but not like a with slash
Not
and
not not
credit,
not
but
an
just
and
like
as. I think he was the first one to be featured under also starring, which to a
yes,
certain extent means he is not in any way an important actor in this film.
yeah, which is strange actually because he's in it.
He
He's
gets a
in this movie.
substantial amount of screen time.
Yeah, which I was grateful for that opportunity to explore him not talking to Kelly about her latest breakup. But anyway, yes. So we cut to 7 years later. We're kind of catching up with the girls. This is another very slashery thing where they're all getting invitations to this kind of mysterious reunion, and they don't know who's putting it on. They each kind of assume it's one of the other girls.
And
Um,
are the invitations stuffed with like $100 bills?
Certainly one of them was.
Okay.
That
It's
was
unclear why that is part of the narrative, given where the narrative goes. But it still seems weird and creepy.
yeah. But wait, whose invitation had the $100 bills? Was it Sylvia, the
Oh,
prostitute?
that's a good question. I think so.
I think it was. We'll circle back to that later. So yeah, one of them's a prostitute, or in her own words, a whore. Um, and one of them is maybe in a cult. She's got some sort of weird yoga guru, new age guy telling her creepy things. Or maybe, is she in a two-person cult?
I mean, I just took it to be some sort of Southern California yoga in the 70s thing, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. He was giving me very eerie vibes.
Well, he's a guy in 70s Southern California, so I think he probably was not a good person.
Oh yeah, certainly not.
Just parsimoniously. I will assume all people alive at that point in time were not good people in
Hmm.
that state.
Yeah. Okay, and then one of them is like a model who wants to marry the son of the senator or something.
Oh no, isn't she the one who gets the money?
Oh, is she? I think
I
she
think she's the one we're
is.
with when we see them open the invitations.
Okay, yeah, that's weird. Yeah, I don't know what that's about.
Right,
Um,
because there's a whole little thing where like we see her reading the newspaper about herself dallying with the son of the senator.
yeah. Huh, okay. Um, and then there's other girls, and I couldn't tell you a thing about these girls. Cannot figure out their names. One of them is named Francie. She might be the cult one. Um, I think she says
Yeah,
she's Italian.
the issue I very quickly had is that this movie does very little to distinguish its female cast members other than giving them all a slightly different haircut, or in some cases, like substantially. One of them has pigtails, but the hair is, for me, 100% of what I had to go on to distinguish them.
Yeah,
And I guess the one that we meet, like reading the newspaper about herself and the senator's son, like that gives us enough of a lingering aura to be able to kind of keep track of her.
kind of. But the second the girls get together, they lose any distinction in their characters. They're all just kind of like fawning girls for the most part.
Hmm. There is the brunette with a five head.
There certainly is. But yes, they all get invited to a reunion in Paso Robles in California. Um, but there are two gentlemen in a car waiting for them. I don't know why two gentlemen needed to be involved, but they have been paid to take the girls to this isolated mansion more than an hour out of town that is surrounded by an electric fence. And guess what? The girls show up. They're all excited to party in this mansion, even though some of them are a little weirded out. One of them is a little weirded out by the
Even though
circumstances.
the vibes are dire, they're all like, "Hey, there's a pool. Let's strip down and swim in it,"
Yep. And then of
which
course,
they do not do because this is a PG rated movie.
is it actually?
This is an actual. I stayed through the credits. Stayed through credits. I let the credits roll. This is a flat out PG rated movie.
That makes sense. But also, this is before PG-13, so like things were.
You could be a little harder edged in a PG, but you still couldn't show like nudity.
Mm, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Um,
And apparently you couldn't show violence either, as we will
evidently.
learn over the course of this motion picture.
Oh my god, I did not realize that. Um, but yeah, so they go to the party. The two dudes are like, hey, let's sneak into the party too. One of them is Joey Tata, whose character trait is that he's incredibly horny.
Hmm.
The other one's the other guy.
Yep.
And then basically they all hang out in the house.
And there's like a whole 2-minute scene where the guys like try to test the electrical fence to see if they can climb over it.
Oh yeah, it's riveting.
It's riveting. It's like the scene in Jurassic Park, stripped bare of any tension.
Obviously the electric fence gets locked and turned on. To the consternation of everyone, which obviously that's not great, but I feel like there are so many ways to thwart an electric fence that they just simply do not think of.
Hmm.
Like throw your coat over it. Like what's the problem?
I mean, you know, it feels like getting away from this compound is much less of a priority to them than they seem to talk about it being. And they also seem to spend multiple days on this compound without ever really doing anything besides bitching about the fact that they're stuck on this compound.
Yeah, and then pretty quickly this older man shows up and he's like, "Oh, ho, ho, I'm here to see you die in revenge for my daughter's death during the orientation thing,
And
initiation."
and I do think it is worth pointing out that the old man speaks with a standard US accent. He's like from Iowa.
He does. He's very bland. Everyone in
He's
this
very
movie is
bland.
bland.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't you dare imply that we have like a Carpathian vampire, because that makes it sound fun, and it's
Yeah, you're
not.
right.
But it's yeah. So like he shows up and he's like, you shot my daughter at your initiation event 7 years ago, and that's why I'm going to trap you all here, killing you one by one until I figured out which one of you did it. It's like, okay, great movie. I now have no investment in figuring out what's going on.
Yeah, but then they still try to make it a whodunit. Um, and he's just kind of like chilling in the den making bullets the whole time.
And sometimes playing a flute.
Yeah, and they don't seem his arrival doesn't seem to galvanize them in any way.
It doesn't, I don't.
Like he'll show up every now and again to say evil things and then they'll just forget he was ever there.
They'll forget he was there.
They never
And then
look
it's
for
like
him.
when someone shows up dead, they're like, "Oh no, someone's killing us." It's like, yeah, the guy who said I'm going to kill you all is probably making good on his threats.
Yeah. The object permanence in this movie is not strong. And yeah, he's just like I think in the attic, and they're never like, let's go find this man. He's
They never
clearly
go
in
look
the
for the guy. They
house.
never try to like confront him. They never try to figure out what's going on.
It's really strange, but that he's what I was saying. Like he's where it feels like a Vincent Price movie gone wrong.
Mm,
And
mm,
everything else is like a proto slasher vibe. Like
sure.
everything else could be Tourist Trap or something. Like, but with less telekinesis. Um, but he, I think, does actually nothing. He adds nothing to the movie. He doesn't uh actually actively perform almost any of the killings when it comes
No,
down to it.
I mean, when it comes down to it, we don't see most of the killings. For the most part, we see the body after the killing has happened. I think. Do we see the one girl whose throat gets like garroted? Do we actually see that happen? I think we might.
Yes, we see the necklace being pulled tight against her throat, and
Right,
she kind of goes bug-eyed.
right. And then we also see one of the guys run from a dog into the electric fence and die, which is
That
a
is,
real fucking loser way to die.
it really is, and that is Joey Tata.
That's what I thought. I wasn't 1,000% sure which one was which, but that's what I thought.
Yeah, may flights of angels sing thee to thy rest.
And that's actually probably the single grodiest thing that happens in the movie, because he falls forward and we see like the steaming holes in his back or the electrical fence, which is not shaped like that. So I'm not sure what exactly were meant to be the points of contact between his body and the fence. But it burned through his shirt and left scarring like black holes on his skin, apparently. Or maybe he was just wearing a black undershirt. I'm not sure.
Maybe. But yes, no, that was almost something. But yeah, so the girls begin to die one by one. They're like, who could be doing this? And even though it's incredibly obvious who's doing it, he is just the puppet master. Turns out he is in league with one of the girls, which they find out about halfway through.
About halfway through.
And then again, don't really bother trying to figure out who it could be.
Right.
Um,
To a degree that is insane because there's also like moments I'm specifically thinking of like this one shower scene where or the girls are like, well, I feel safe because you're here, so I'm gonna step into the shower. And it's like, no, why?
yeah, and she's just
What
like,
about the situation has changed?
yeah, I don't know. And then
And
there's
it's
like,
also this fucking family movie, so we don't see anything.
yeah, it's so bizarre. Now that we're really kind of like picking it apart, it sounds more weird and interesting than it is because it's
That's the
so
problem with it.
boring.
It sounds like this strange fever dream Southern California object, and it's really just watching people walking around like this sand patch, whining and like digging to find the plate where the power is.
Yeah, it is resolutely unthrilling. um yeah, so that's kind of the basic shape of the plot. We'll talk about the big reveal at the end at a certain point. We won't spoil Sisters of Death just yet. Um yeah, what the fuck?
I I'm going to go ahead and tip my hand at this point since we finished talking about the plot. I didn't like it, Brennan.
No. Um I think so. I did not have a chance. I don't know if you've put a letterboxed review up
I was
yet.
able so here's my deep dark secret.
Uh huh.
I fell asleep watching this motion picture.
Ooh.
I sat down to watch it the night before we recorded our episode, and I fell asleep actually only for about the last 20 minutes because I watched the last half hour and I saw stuff I'd already seen.
Okay.
But it is the kind of movie where you fall asleep watching it. So that's a thing. Uh so I did finish it like I finished it like half an hour before we started recording. I letterboxed it like 2 minutes before we started recording.
Got it. Okay. So you
So
you might have.
I do have a star rating up, and that star rating is 1.5.
Ooh, okay. I did actually a full star higher than you. I don't know, can't tell you why, but I think there was something just like
You have a forgiving nature.
I have a forgiving nature perhaps, but also there was just like a bare minimum element of it to me where I was just like I just don't feel like it's hurting me uh to watch this movie. And it sounds like it was hurting you, so I do apologize.
I I feel like you say there's a bare minimum element, which is amusing to me because I think that is what is missing from this film is a
Hmm.
bare minimum. Like
Ooh, okay.
so I will say in this film's defense, there are expectations that I carry to a and then there were none style murder film that no film shot in 1972 would be aware it was responsible for fulfilling. Really, I don't know that a film released in 1977 would have those expectations because it's not Halloween doesn't exist yet. Black
Yes.
Christmas does, Texas Chainsaw does. The the Rubicon has not been crossed with Halloween. I still feel if you are trying to do again it's an and then there were none like very much so more so than a lot of these are I think if you're doing that and you're sort of acting like this is a murder mystery and the characters don't know what's going on. I feel like not telling us who the killer is 5 minutes into the plot matters. Like I think you can't give away it's more than 5 minutes. It's like half an hour in before we meet Mr. Clybourne or whatever his name is.
Well, because
But
there's a lot of noodling before they even get to the
there's
house.
so much we have the whole thing about the newspaper with the senator's son and we have like is this your invitation? Well, no, I knew it was your invitation. It's like it wasn't my invitation. um like before anyone has died, we already know who is killing them and why. And if that's the way you're telling your story, that's fine. I've seen slasher films. I've seen thousands, not thousands. I've seen lots of movies that do that. Uh you can't act like it's a murder mystery because it just gets super boring. And that's exactly what happens here.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. I don't disagree with your score at all. I don't know. Maybe I was in a nice mood after not
See,
after watching the movie, but before watching the movie.
that's the other thing. I was not in a good mood going into the film, so like I was not looking to be generous with it.
Yeah,
But
that's fair because I'm very much on the same page with you. But I don't know.
I'm also I will also say I'm willing to concede a full half star of my review might just be the transfer.
Yes, I've
The transfer is bad. Like it's the worst transfer I've seen of anything in a while.
Yeah, it's really grim. But as someone who is has made a point to try, and I'm trying to see every slasher movie that exists from the '80s. I have had to choke down some primevally shitty transfers, so that wasn't necessarily. It is bad. It is capital BAD bad. But I can try to separate myself from that.
I I feel like I wish I could have, but it's I don't know, just stuck in my craw a bit. But that's again, that's not really the movie's fault per se, but it does make a film that has, I think, very little going on visually uglier.
Yes.
Like this is a movie that's set in a sand pit. It's a house in a sand pit, and that's the movie.
Yeah, basically, it's not a good house either. It's just a shitty Southern California '70s house. Um,
That's the thing. It doesn't feel like a lair. It just feels like a big house.
yeah, and not even that big of a house. Again, it's not like, which wing has this guy vanished into? It's like there's 2.5 stories. You can find him.
Hmm. And I think that's really what really got up my ass was just there is such a little quantity of urgency because even after the characters understand that they are in danger, they seem to be more irritated that they can't get through the fence than worried that they're in a murder house.
Yes, which is
And
so peculiar.
it's peculiar and like it's just really really hard for the movie to start building up ahead of steam because it's not even again like a we know more than the characters so we're rooting for them to learn what we know what the characters know and they don't care and if they don't care well I'm not gonna care.
Yeah, and then the third act is mainly them wandering around in the sand, calling each other's names,
Hmm.
which is pretty brutal. So I'm sorry for that just being your morning, uh, but
Yeah, I started with the scene where not Joe Tata meets the meets finds the rattlesnake in the shed. He meets the
nice.
rattlesnake. They have a nice cup of tea.
Mhm. He
And
sings a little song about what it's like to be a snake.
I will say, I feel like this is the kind of movie that can't afford a prop snake, so I assume that's a real rattlesnake.
Oh,
Do
for
you think?
sure, for sure.
That's an amazing shot because it literally just pans from the actor to the rattlesnake, and there's just like, oh, you just put a actor in a room with a rattlesnake. Cool.
That's terrifying.
So
Um,
that's kind of scary. That scared me a little bit.
that's kind
But
of
yeah,
yeah. You're more just
there. So
scared like, did this guy live to see 1973?
exactly. But so the killer has staged a rattlesnake in the shed. Seems to be the implication here. This does not seem to be a naturally occurring rattlesnake. And he does throw a bunch of tarantulas at the girls.
Yes.
There are at least three tarantulas in this film, I think.
I think
Or
so.
maybe
I
one tarantula thrice.
yeah, we see multiple scenes with the tarantula in different places, but it could be the same one because they also kind of don't react to that very well or notice it a lot of the time. And also, again, tarantulas famously not poisonous or
Not poisonous.
venomous. Um, so, but still wouldn't want one crawling on my face when I'm sleeping.
Also, gonna say, if you are someone who likes tarantulas and wishes to see them thrive, or in general doesn't care for animals being very like visibly killed on screen, maybe want to avoid this movie.
Yes. That's like number 7 on my list of reasons to avoid this movie, but yes, it's on there.
But there are persons for whom that would be number one,
Yes,
and I just
absolutely.
want those people to know that.
Yes, no, that is good to know.
I watch Italian movies. It's not even on my list. It's like at least it's only a bug. At least it's not like a rabbit.
Yeah, or like I mean, there's that scene. I don't actually know if this is real or not, but I assume it is. But that scene in Friday the 13th where Bill like chops up that snake with a machete, like that's
Mm.
probably just real. But yeah, no, there's the Wild West out there. I don't know. I don't need to justify the score that I gave, but I'm trying to think of like what did I like in this movie that I don't know.
I mean, you gave it
Obviously,
a bad score.
I
It's not like you
did.
said
I
this movie's
did.
great and you should all watch it.
No, I did
In
not
which
say that.
case, we would be having a much different conversation.
Yeah. Well, I gave it a mediocre score and a bad review where I just asked why did anyone think this was worth making?
And again, it turns out they kind of didn't because they made it and they were like, "Oops,
Yeah,
bury this shit."
what you gonna do? But yes, okay. So I do like that opening sequence. I
And I do
think,
like that it's called back, actually. So we won't say what happens yet, but at the end there's also freeze frames of faces. And I did think
yes,
that was a nice, tied it all together, gave the whole movie a shape, made it feel like I just watched something that actually existed.
that is nice. Um, I liked that they had an idea to, so they were like, we need to send a message to planes saying SOS. And there was a banner that said welcome sisters, and they're like, we can use this. And I was like, oh,
It
that's
was
almost clever.
that was kind of cute. I liked
Yeah.
it. And
Um,
they sort of let the audience figure it out because the one sister says, I have an idea. And then we see like the sign with the O and two of the S's having been cut out of it.
uh-huh.
But there's never like she doesn't explain it.
Yes, that is cool.
That's the level where I feel like I can praise this movie is it doesn't over articulate every element of its plot.
Yeah, I mean, there's not that many
Or
elements
arguably
and
many of them.
not that much articulation. Um, yeah, and I think there's one good line reading from one of the girls in the movie. I did like the line where Sylvia is like, "I've become a drunk and a whore." And maybe the
That's
final line
good.
of the movie is pretty good.
I don't know if I'm going to defend the line reading, but I kind of like the line if cleanliness is next to godliness and I'm getting clean, then I'm standing by him and the killer can't get to me, or something to that effect.
Oh yeah, that was a weird line. I really liked that.
A line that I've now heard twice because that was part of the batch that I
Oh
rewatched.
God, Francie's shower. What a
That's her name,
moment in
Francie.
cinema. Um,
Also, kind of a fun subversion in that if I was following correctly, and I won't say that I was, during the shower scene, I think it's the one who's not showering who gets stabbed.
I think so. The one who's showering does. We don't see her die, but she does die in the bathroom somehow, or at least her corpse is left there.
Right.
But you're right. I think I don't fucking know.
It's very hard to. The ones who aren't blonde, I can sort of keep track of. The ones who are blonde, I'm like, I don't know. You're one of them.
Yeah, it is a deep mystery. It's the only mystery that functions in this movie. But since we're talking about the acting, let's talk a little bit about Joey Tata. He's the reason we're here today. We are gathered here.
Honest to God, I think you could defend that he's giving the best performance in this movie
I completely agree. I think he's such a reliable character actor. Um,
because he was in a billion things. I
yeah,
looked up his filmography, and he was like on basically every television show that existed.
yeah. I think he's. I think if if he hadn't passed away and kind of retired in the like late 2000s, he would have been a
Presumably in the
mainstay.
other order.
Yes, sorry, he retired in the late 2000s and then passed away in like 2019 or
Because
2021.
because if you're dead, I think your retirement is just kind of assumed.
Yes, that is true. Um, but yes, so if that hadn't happened, he would kind of be a mainstay as probably a Nat type character in Hallmark Christmas movies.
Mm,
Because those movies need actors who can perform their lines convincingly in a single take and just be efficient and get through the scene.
100%.
And I don't think anyone's gonna say like he's one of our greatest talents, but he is reliable and he can bring a character
He
to life.
he's the guy that you don't need to give direction to. You're just like, here's the line, go do it, and he does it, and it's what you wanted.
Yeah. So
That's a
I
huge thing. Like I sounds dismissive, but that's what makes the industry go forward is people like that.
absolutely, and that's one of the things that I when I do have the misfortune to stumble into a Hallmark Christmas movie, I respect those actors the most.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is the height that you can strive for in that type of movie. Um, but yeah, and it makes total sense that he stumbled into a long running television role like Nat, which is just supporting, but like he's good grease in the wheels
Mm-hmm.
of any storyline.
No, it's the thing where if you need to have someone function properly in and out, you're not building the story around him, but if he's not there, there's a gap in the story and it just kind of skips over that gap and collapses.
Yes.
And this is the skill. This is really a skill. Again, like guy you don't need to give direction to is an important talent for a character actor.
Absolutely. And same thing like this is, on a different
Especially if
level.
you're on 90210 and you're dealing with all of the insane bubblehead like idiots who go on to have no careers. Like you want to focus on them and let the people who are just having like 5 lines in one scene like just kind of be the concrete holding the scene together.
Yeah, I would say yeah, if you are a television director and you're probably Daniel Adius, who directed so many 90210 episodes, um and you have to coach Tori Spelling through a scene,
This is what I'm saying. You don't want to have to think about any other thing.
yeah, you don't want her scene partner to be difficult. But yes, so yeah, and compared to the rest of this cast, he's fucking Brando, you know? So it is
I
nice.
I did not even look. Is anyone else involved in this film? Anything? Shall I look that up while you're
Yeah,
talking?
you can look it up. I did some cursory looks. I think one of the ladies, she was like a Miss USA or something, and she did have some TV acting, but she died in like '79,
Oh dear.
which is a bummer. In a car accident, I think. Um, but like I think you're gonna get a couple people who are in like Gator Bait and like '70s cult exploitation stuff, but
Oh,
beyond that.
yeah, Claudia Jennings, who is in Gator Bait,
Okay,
which
okay, I
I
remembered
found
that. Okay, great.
very winning. And she did die quite young, and I learned that when I was watching Gator Bait.
That sucks. R.I.P.
And Arthur Franz, who plays Clybourne, it
Uh-huh.
felt like he's got to be because he's first build.
He
He
is.
he's another one of those like I was in every TV show after I was in every B Western. Is
Yeah.
basically his career arc.
Yeah, that makes sense. Maybe he was just in some sort of 3-season Western show that people didn't
Oh,
watch, but
he's
earned
never a
him.
regular.
Okay.
He is never ever a regular in anything, but he is just in thing after thing after thing for decades.
Yeah, good for him.
He plays like lieutenant in real movies that have actors in them.
And that is, you can build a career off that shit.
Absolutely. Also, I want to point out as I'm looking at this cast,
Hmm.
there are 2 Sherrys and a Cherie in the cast of Sisters of Death.
I think that's fitting.
I feel good about that.
Mm. Oh, and I must mention, since we're talking about the cast, there is a cameo from another cast member of 90210, which is Boomy the Boom Mic. We in a hallway scene, we do get to see a bit of him. Um,
I I will come rushing to the defense of Sisters of Death. I will not declare that the transfer you and I watched was matted correctly.
yes, that could very well be correct, and it's just one scene. So Boomy had just like Joey Tata went on to kind of a longer running role on
Mm-hmm.
90210. He's probably on more episodes than Shannon Doherty. um, but yeah, no, the cast generally was not particularly impressive in Sisters of Death,
No.
including Arthur France. But Joey Tata, uh, good for him. It's nice to see him with a meteor role. He gets to kiss someone. He gets to die. That's very exciting for an actor.
Actors love dying. They have so much fun dying. And he's like one of the only people, he might literally be the only person we see die.
I mean, it depends. I mean, we see him die. Like we see the life leave his eyes on camera. If that's what you mean.
I mean that there is a shot in which he starts alive and he ends it dead.
Yep, yep. Because I think the necklace choking is the second.
That's probably the other candidate. Yeah.
Yeah, but we don't see her like we see her start to die.
Yes.
We don't see it through to completion. Um, but anyway, was there any? Is there a single good thing about the movie that we haven't mentioned yet?
It is blowing my goddamn mind that we've been talking about this movie for over 45 minutes. I'll be honest, I didn't think we were going to find enough to get
Well,
there.
we
And I
talked
know that like
about
20 of those minutes were not about the movie.
yeah. Well, you know what? Well, in that case, should we talk about the ending? Because I kind of liked the ending.
We can talk about the ending.
Okay.
I kind of liked the ending.
Yeah, like the very 1970s. Like
So the second twist, not the first twist. The first twist just was whatever to me.
the first twist is nothing because who could care? Spoiler alert: Sylvia did it. Do you
It's
know
it's
Sylvia?
the brunette five head. It's the reason that I think she is the one who vaguely has a sort of weird presence, and it's like it paid off because she was the killer.
Sure. And she was the one who has become a drunk and a whore. Um, again, I'm still quoting her. I really liked that line.
It's a good
Um,
line.
it's a
It is a line that we can both remember, which
mhm.
is in and of itself a sign that it is one of the better lines.
Very much. But yeah, she's doing it. They do kind of recreate some of the ritual initiation thing at the end. Um, but the dude who is not Joey Tata rescues
Paul
who
Carr playing Mark.
got it, Mark. He rescues whoever the final girl is, whatever the hell her name, Julie Jorgi
Uh yeah, something like that.
Candy. um, but anyway, so the two of them run out, and he's like, "We did it, we made it," and then she's just like, "I made it," and she shoots him, and the credits roll. It's awesome.
It's awesome because like it's great because like the way it plays initially is so uh the brunette is in league with the father, and it played to me at least like she was just like, well, we're all going to die, so I'll be the make sure that I'm the one who doesn't die, and I'll throw my fellow sisters under the bus. And so she has this monologue about it was you who did it, you asked me all these details so you could swap out the bullet. And it reads in that moment as the killer is trying to continue throwing doubt so that the actual killer doesn't realize she's whatever. And then the end comes and it's like, oh, actually, no, you probably did do it. You probably are the killer. You probably did it on purpose because you're a psychopath.
Yeah, she
The
probably
end.
did. But she also implied that the the pledge who died swapped the bullets herself because she wanted to kill herself via sorority initiation, which is also, if that's true, also a wild twist.
But then she turns out to have for no reason killed the guy. So I
Yeah,
assume that that was
exactly.
part of her lie.
Yeah, it probably was. Um,
It's I do like that the movie just begins throwing out everyone's awful. Everyone wants to kill everyone else for no reason,
yep.
as it's like final 2 minutes of screen time.
And it comes alive briefly, ever so briefly. And I do love we talked about this in Death Game. There's something fun about just like a weird 70s fuck you, the movie's over.
That is something I do cherish is 70s movies that end the frame that the conflict is resolved. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
a art to that.
Yeah, you get that in Hills Have Eyes. Texas Chainsaw Massacre
Texas
has a
Chainsaw.
great
Yeah.
ending. Um, that I mean, we've brought up Texas Chainsaw multiple times already talking about this movie, and it's simply not fair to compare it to Texas Chainsaw, which we're not really doing. But that's such a good ending. Anyway, but it is this ending is in a family of endings that is doing that. Uh,
The movie begins with its best scene and ends with its second best scene to me. And that does speak to the movie having some quantum of quality.
yes, which will help me justify my score to myself, because I've really had to dig deep and consider my choices with my 2.5
I mean,
stars.
honestly, if the transfer is better, if I don't fall asleep in the middle of it, do I give this movie 2 stars? I might. It's a possibility. I don't think I get up to 2.5.
I think that's completely fair. It's just so bland.
It's so nothing happens. Nothing happens in this movie.
It really doesn't. It is ugly and tedious, and that Sisters of Death, everyone. Thank you for your service. Yeah, anything else to throw out about this movie?
No.
Yeah,
What
let's be done.
what could I even bullshit?
Fair enough. But yeah, so I think that's gonna do it for us. That's gonna do it for 90210 month. Thank you everyone for coming on this journey with me. I will report back in fucking
I
3
I would like
years.
I would like for you to start watching like Nashville or something. So the next time we do one of these, it can be with an ensemble of talented actors who were in good movies.
Yeah. Well, are you talking about?
The Altman film,
Well,
not the television soap opera.
yeah, but like I can't binge the Altman movie Nashville.
Well, you can watch the Altman movie Nashville, and then you can be like, let's look at the ensemble cast of the movie Nashville.
Great. Um, but yeah, I mean, we should could we roll on through? Should we do Melrose Place next month?
I mean, I was sort of brainstorming like Twin Peaks. We could certainly generate a list off of. Um,
That's almost too easy.
that's fair. Possibly Babylon 5. I think we might be able to get something out of.
Yeah, we'll talk about this off the air.
Okay.
But yes, thank you so much everybody for listening. This we have not decided what we are doing for June yet, but if you are on the Patreon, you will see the latest poll for that probably just a few days after this episode airs. So keep an eye out, and you can vote for the first movie that we cover in June. But yes, until next time, everybody. Bye. Bye-bye.
She hate me.